Neil Everett is a sportscaster for ESPN. He's the co-anchor of the West Coast edition of SportsCenter, and he was born in Portland, Oregon, graduated from the University of Oregon in 1984. Welcome, Neil. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So
take care of our own.
So my first question is that, I know that you didn't make a direct, I know you did some work at a radio station, right? Initially, but then you took a brief time out from broadcasting, right? What's the lineage of that?
Yeah, I worked, when I graduated U of O, I went to work in Florence, Oregon for a radio station. I did 1 year there. I moved to Hawaii and I got a job in athletic administration as a sports information director. So I was basically the PR guy for the athletic department of a small college. But then I got into television at the same time, but not in front of the camera because I needed the money. And so I was a writer for local news station, KITV. So I would write the news at night for their 10 o'clock show after I did my daily thing at Hawaii Pacific.
So you were saying, so how did the break back into broadcasting happen?
Well, while I was at that television station writing news, and then I became an assistant or an assignment editor on the weekends. They had two sports guys, like most sports stations do. I don't know where. Owen, where are you at? Are you in Eugene?
I'm in Eugene right now.
Yeah, so like KVAL. So KVAL, for example, I interned at KVAL. So they had two sports guys. Well, the news director hadn't realized that one guy was on vacation, the other guy was sick. And he had nobody to do the show that weekend. And this is a true story. He looked at me and he said, "Hey, Neil, don't you do some sports job downtown?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a sports information director." And he says, "You're doing the sports this weekend." That was it. And I went on the air that weekend. I'd never been on the air I had done a couple intern, packages so I could have a reel. And but I had never been on the air in any capacity. And that weekend I was your local sports guy.
Let me go ahead and introduce Owen Seiler, who's a 2020 graduate from the School of Journalism and is an aspiring sportscaster. And he'll have some questions for you in just a bit. But how did the break at ESPN come?
Oh yeah, so that was crazy. So the job that I did that weekend, eventually this is over a number of years. Now I'm the full-time sports guy at another station. I still work part-time now for the college in a different capacity. And one of our basketball players at the college was an East Coast kid. And he was back in New York and he was at a health club or on a treadmill or something. And he started a conversation with a sports agent. And he said, "Hey, you should check out my boy Neil in Hawaii. He's really funny," or something like that. And so he gave him my number. So I got a phone call, and it was this agent from New York, and he says, "Hey, heard a lot about you. I want to represent you." And I said, "Hey, listen, you can't do anything for me." I go, "I'm in Hawaii, man. I'm fine. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving Hawaii. I'm not interested. I'm not going to Austin, Texas, or Spokane, or Eugene, or New York, or anywhere. I'm not leaving." At the very end of the conversation, I thought, this guy was persistent. Why don't you just send me a tape? And I'm like, "No." And then I said, "I'll tell you what. You get me a job. You get me an interview at ESPN." And so this is my message to you, Owen. Is you determine where your golden ring is. And I didn't even know that ESPN was a golden ring. In fact, I think I was telling this guy that get me an interview at ESPN, kind of get him off the phone. Because there was at no point in my life, I watched SportsCenter, and there was no point in my life did I ever think I could do that or that I even wanted to do that. I just did something on a much smaller scale at a much smaller market, but I was very happy with my place in life right there. I had no, I had no desire, but for whatever reason, whatever little voice in my head said, ask for ESPN, reach for the moon, man, reach as high as you can go, reach for something that you don't even think you can get because you never know. Separate your shoulder reaching, man. That's what I did. And I sent the guy a tape, and the process played out. And it was a number of years later I was hired, but I wasn't hired right away because when he called me and he says, "You got an interview at ESPN?" I said, "You're my agent." They flew me back there for a audition, and I sucked. I was horrible because I didn't do my homework. Like I thought I could walk in there and just be cool and be the Hawaii guy. And be able to wing it. And I was horrible because in Hawaii, for my sportscast, I didn't talk about the same things they were talking about on SportsCenter. I didn't talk about the Chicago White Sox. I didn't know how to pronounce a lot of these names. I'd never heard them before. And I didn't do my homework. See, I knew enough of what SportsCenter covered that I should have been reading the box score to make sure I could pronounce these names and know what the standings were and all that. And I didn't do it. And so I left. I sucked, and I had to go back to Hawaii, and I had only myself to blame because I knew I had sucked, and I knew why I'd sucked. And a year later, that agent called me and he said, "Hey, they want to give you another interview. They saw something." And I said, oh. So I went back, and this time I did my homework, and I crushed it. I thought they were going to hire me before I left the building. It's a whole nother year before they called again. So this was a long, like I couldn't even watch SportsCenter anymore because now I was like looking at the girl that got away. I'm like, oh, I had her right here to kiss her, and then it's gone. And finally I got the job, and that was 20 years ago.
I got one more question for you, then we'll bring Owen in. How did you find your voice? It seems like for broadcasters, that's a important aspect of distinguishing you from the other people who do what you do.
Well, I think there's two things. One is, what is your voice? It's like when people say, "Hey, I want to be you." I'm like, no, be you, man. No, don't be me. There's already one of me. That a lot of people think that's one too many. So, this is, like when I'm talking to you right now, I like to look at it like gears on a car. Okay, when that red light comes on, I'm driving in fifth gear. Right now, I'm talking to you guys in fourth gear. I live my life in second gear. Like if you hung out with me and we were sitting on the couch, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Owen?" But if I did the show like that, people would be like, "What's this dude on Quaaludes or something?" I mean, pick it up. So I know that when the light comes on, you've got to deliver. So I don't feel like I'm changing my voice. I'm not doing, "Hey, welcome." I'm not doing that because that's infuriating. I'm speaking faster than I normally would, or I've got a little more oomph my foot is on the pedal.
Okay. Owen, you've got some questions.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Sure, man. Thanks for your patience. Thank you, Ed, for your patience too. And getting a hold of me.
It's totally awesome. I kind of want to know, you've obviously been in the industry for a really long time. What have you seen that's kind of been some of the biggest changes as you've gone along, and how young, broadcasters or aspiring journalists can get ahead of the curve a little bit, I guess?
Well, I think the biggest change, obviously, is the whole internet and social media. When I started, I didn't have a cell phone until 10 years ago. So 20 years ago, I think, the one is, anything you say now is out there. Anything I say I swore on the air once. I thought we were off. If you Google my name, it's the first thing that's going to come up. Neil Everett said "son of a bitch" on SportsCenter. There it was, and that was all my fault. I was mortified. But so I think just the advent of social media and the ability of everything to live forever, which a lot of people are finding out now. that they did not know and wish they hadn't said some of the things that they've said. So I think that's the biggest difference.
I would totally agree. With, the whole COVID-19 and everything going on right now, do you think like this has kind of been one of the toughest like challenges of your career as a journalist, and like how have you been able to, kind of stay involved and keep up to date and,
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't stayed involved, and I haven't really kept up to date. I mean, I listen to talk radio a little bit, but I haven't turned on the TV to watch SportsCenter. I've been off work since March 13th. So I'm going back on they just told me I'm going back on the air on July 6th. I'm going to do radio for 3 hours, national radio for 3 hours a day, which is, that's a whole different animal. You really have to like to hear your own voice to do radio. And I'm not that fond of my own voice, but fortunately I've got Stan with me, and Stan's got some radio experience. So I said, hey, Stan, you're driving the bus. I will hop on the bus, but doing radio is going to be a challenge for me. But it's what they asked me to do, and I'm glad to do it. But I haven't kept up. I probably haven't kept up as well as I should have, for sure. But I read the newspaper every day. I'm like old school like that. But I haven't, I'm not watching the '96 game between the Trailblazers and the Lakers. There's nothing that you can do that's going to induce me to watch that.
I wouldn't be either. You don't know how that went.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of internships already, and I'm kind of like in the process of finishing up my reel. Do you have any advice on what people would be looking for in a reel, or anything to kind of make yourself stand out?
Well, again, I think like Ed mentioned, where'd you get your voice? And it's like you gotta have something. You gotta have some juice. And defining juice is one man's juice is another man's junk. So like one guy, I always say, Owen, you send out 100 resumes, okay? You ask 100 girls out. This is what I always do. You got 99 no's. You know what that means? That means you got a date. And it's kind of the same way with resumes. It's, now you don't ask out somebody you don't want to say yes. So if you don't want to work in Butte, Montana, then don't send a resume to Butte, Montana. But, but Bozeman, Montana is a hopping spot. That's kind of a cool place. It really is. It really
I have family there. That's funny.
Yeah, Bozeman's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and the other thing is I really think, you have to be your own advocate, and you've really got to follow up. You can't wait for them to contact you, because that guy has gotten, if he's gotten your one resume, he's got 50 of them. So this is how I got into the TV in Hawaii. Back then there were 3 TV stations in Hawaii. So I sent each of them a letter with my cheesy little reel, which is embarrassing if you looked at it now. One was on a mushroom tasting event in Eugene. Go figure. And so I sent it out to all 3. Well, then a week later or 10 days later, I called all 3 fellas. I said, hey, my name's Neil Everett. I sent you this tape. Did you get it? Yeah, I got it. Well, haven't looked at it yet. Well, I'd like to keep in touch. Yeah, call me next week. Okay, so then I'm writing down, okay, the guy from Channel 2 said call next week. That's March 14th or whatever. March 14th came, I called that guy back up. And I did that with those 3 fellas that I'd sent the tape to. And I swear to you, one of them got so tired of hearing from me, he said, come on down here. We'll find something for you to do. That's how I got in the building. And that's how I started writing the copy for the news show, and that led to this. So one, you've got your tape's got to be good. Put your good stuff right up front, man. Don't say, hey, wait till the 3-minute mark. I got this great question.
Yeah.
No, because a lot of I think a lot of news directors look and go, next, so you you got to grab them. You got to make sure your suit is tight. You know, don't have on the, look, this is your shot, man. You know, this is you're at the plate, man. You got to, you really need to make solid contact and ask your friends and ask your parents or ask Ed, ask these people who know and say, hey, send the tape to me if you want. I'll tell you, hey, man, I don't know what the hell that second thing you had there was. That was stupid. Or I'll tell you, no, it looked really good. Your shoelace was untied. Just dumb stuff like that will catch people's eyes. Like I always, when I've ever had to hire anybody who sent me a resume that was folded, boom, I tossed it. Forget about if there was a mistake in it, then it's gone for sure. Another was when they wouldn't put their references upon request. And I'm like, well, now you're asking me to get back to you when I've already asked you to send me your resume. And if you send me your resume and yours says references on request, and Ed sends me his resume and he's got Bob Costas as a reference, guess who's getting first shot? Ed's getting first shot.
Yeah.
So put those, make it one page if you can. I don't care that you were a camp counselor, when you were 12. I did stuff, you were a bartender. Okay. That guy, he knows that he knows how to move on his feet. Boom. That's something I did. I was a bartender. So, you kind of know how to deal with people, but make it tight and don't fold it. That's my suggestion.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I've, professors like Ed and just the School of Journalism in general has kind of just really, gave me great opportunities. I interned up in Seattle for King 5 this past summer. And then I did KZI here in the fall, in Eugene. And was able to get plenty of stuff, and I was under, great mentorship. And
good.
It's definitely helped me out. Definitely made me get strides in the career.
I was actually at, what is it, KUGN? Is that in Eugene?
Oh, man. It's KVAL, KZI, and then...
Oh, radio.
Oh, radio.
Yes, there is a...
So I was an intern at KUGN, and then they hired me to be the guy that worked from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and they ran automated programming. It was on reels, and at the top of the hour, I would go... Eugene Springfield weather, 68 degrees on this Saturday. Going to be a beautiful day. Go Ducks. Now back to Larry King. Okay, that's all I would get to say. And I did, and then I would lay on the floor and sleep for 59 minutes. And then every 3 hours I had to change the tape. But I tell that story because that's the kind of thing that you have to be willing to do at your age, when all your buddies are like, no, come on, man, the Betas are having a party. And it's like a Friday night and you're going in there to do a nothing job. But the guy that owned that radio station owned a station in Maui. And that's why I went to Hawaii. He said, I got a job in Hawaii if you want it. Boom, because I was in the building. Get in the building. Don't be so concerned about being a sports guy. Be concerned about working in media and get in the building. Don't be the horse with blinders on, man. Be like, hey, man, I just want to get in the building because then I'll close my focus. I got in the building talking about news. I knew, listen, of course we want to be a sports guy. Who doesn't? But I didn't go in there just tooting that because there's only 2 sports guys in the whole building. Yeah. There's a ton of news people. There's a ton of editors. There's a ton of directors. There's a ton of producers. Get in the building. They're there. Volunteer to do any. I can do that. You ever ridden a motorcycle 100 miles an hour? Oh yeah, I've done that. Yeah, sure. When am I doing it? Tomorrow? Okay, then that night you're going to go learn how to drive a motorcycle 100 miles an hour. They need you to do it. So that's how you got. I think that's how you have to chase it.
Yeah, that was my...
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Owen. This has been great. We really appreciate it. And it's so great that you take the time out to do this for students. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck, Owen. And if you want to send me your reel, feel free. Ed's got my info.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.